And we've spoken before about Newcastle and their issues with wage bill, trying to get that up. Well, trying to compete really with other clubs. It, Anthony Gordon signed a new contract over the past week. How much of a positive sign is it for them that they can maybe keep some of them star players while they don't have the financial resources available in terms of wage bill to compete with other clubs? Maybe.
Yeah, they've got to keep their best players, um, and I think a lot's been said about that, the potential transfer to Liverpool. If you actually look at what the leak is in respect to that, it clearly was purely around the PSR 30th of June situation, um, and to the point where they were even considering taking, from what I read, Gomez for £40 million as part of that transaction. So they were obviously going to put in a very big number for Gordon, offset by Joe Gomez at 40 million. So it was a PSR specific. I don't think they would, in any event, want to sell Gordon. They've got to try and keep their best players and go from there. The bottom line for Newcastle is, if they are bound in by the APT rules, as they are, or as they have been, then they're just going to have to do things slowly and incrementally. If, however, the APT rules get unwound in the way that it's potentially occurring following the APT hearing that City have had, then that's going to give them a lot more flexibility to spend more heavily, because they'll be able to bring in more associated sponsors to put money in at the top. And if they can put money in at the top, maybe by sponsoring the training ground or wherever else, then clearly they'll have more money to spend on the pitch. And if they've got more money to spend on the pitch, it'll be easier for them to compete.
Newcastle haven't quite gotten up to speed in terms of scoring goals. We know the injuries to Isak, Callum Wilson. Kind of talked about that quite a bit, but right winger was an area where we really thought they'd try and bring someone in this summer, and hasn't happened. Tried to get Rafinha. He's off to an incredible start at Barcelona this year. Do you think they might go back in for him next summer?
I think it's a summer move. Yeah, I think you're right. He's a player that will attract Premier League interest. We saw what he could do at Leeds. I mean, he's 27 years old. He's still got a lot of football left. 2 years at Barcelona now. Let's not forget the caps that he's got for Brazil. The thing that I see with Rafinha, I see a work ethic with him. I see how hard working he is off the ball. He's got quality in the on the ball and with his delivery and his vision, and in the final third, he's a top quality player. But what I like about him is he's got that edge. He's got that little bit of something about him. He's not afraid to put his foot in. And we've spoke before on the pod about the links of Anthony at Newcastle, and I've said I just can't see that and how that fits into Eddie Howe's side. But a player like Rafinha, yeah, you can see that happening. His work rate, his effort, his attitude, the application that he has, he's all there. Barca's financial situation may dictate that a move is more likely than not. But obviously, we know Newcastle's financial situation. They're in a great financial position as a club. But like everybody, they're towing the lines of FFP and PSR. So that's something that they'll have to look at. But he is certainly a player that I think would enhance Newcastle's starting 11 without a shadow of a doubt.
And obviously, we know this past summer, the Mark Gahey saga, the drama, didn't end up happening. Could we see Newcastle go for somebody different coming up now? They're interested in Lens center back Abdul Qadir Kusenov, somebody who's really performed well for them, and obviously they were in the Champions League last year. Would he be a good depth add? Because it feels like defending hasn't been Newcastle's issue this year. It's a matter of scoring goals anyway.
I'm glad I left that pronunciation to you. Kusenov, it's a difficult one. Listen, Uzbekistan international, 14 caps. He's a good player. 20 years old, you buy in potential centre back, but you look at the amount of games that he's played. He's only played a handful of games. The one thing that worries me about the Newcastle back line, maybe the lack of pace at centre half. Yes, Kusenov would be an option. I think you're buying potential, but you're taking a risk of a very young player who's not really established himself at the top level, and asking him to go straight into Premier League football. He's certainly one that you would look at for the future, but if you're looking at for an immediate fix, I'm not so sure that I would hang my hat on such inexperience. He's a quality player. There'll be a lot of clubs looking at him, but I don't think there'll be a lot of clubs that are looking at him to put him straight in the starting 11. But it's an area that Newcastle will be looking at. But he's a good player.
And what does Eddie Howe need to do to get Newcastle to start scoring goals? Because, they've got a decent start to the year, as we mentioned already, defensively, but 0 goals against Everton, 0 goals against Brighton. Both teams that have kind of leaked goals so far this year. It's a little bit worrying, yeah?
if it was longer term, I'd be worried. But you look at the players that are on the pitch for Newcastle: Anthony Gordon, Isak, Murphy, Joe Linton, Tonali. The creativity is there. The players are there. It's the interaction, the quality in the final third, and it's decision making as well. It's the final pass, whether to pass, shoot, and it's just the quality that they've lacked in the final third. Newcastle, the 12 on 12 points. They're only 3 points outside the top 5. Where are Newcastle now? You wanting to see improvement. You wanting to see them finish in the Champions League places or challenge again. We know that they can compete off the field with anybody in the world, but on the field now they've got to start competing in that top 4, top 5 bracket. I like Newcastle as a club. I like Eddie Howe. I like what he's done. I like the relationship that he's got with the supporters, the backing that he's got with the supporters, and you can see what he's trying to do with the team. His hands are tied a little bit, obviously, with the FFP and PSR rules, and losing players, not getting players. The lack of goals is a worry, but I don't think it's a long-term worry for him. Tough game this weekend at Chelsea. If you're a betting man, there's certainly goals in that game. Chelsea score goals at home, and I fancy Newcastle might be able to break the duck. I think you're looking at a few goals at Stamford Bridge this weekend.